Hello folks, my name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? My peoples, where you at? So today we're going to be talking about Trump's war on trans people because these things are important. And it is important that we don't allow these events to get memory hold. It's important that we educate ourselves so that we can make good decisions and so we can fight back against the fascist takeover of our country. It is very apparent that trans people and gay people, along with immigrants, have become the out group that the Trump administration is using in order to galvanize their fascist base, in order to solidify their hold on power. Right out of the Nazi playbook. If you think I'm being hyperbolic when I call these people Nazis, I'm not. I mean it because that's what they are. I mean, if they weren't acting like Nazis, I wouldn't call them Nazis. And he's using hatred against immigrants and especially trans people to do it. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. Some of Trump's executive orders that he's done so far in order to exploit trans people and use hatred against them to rile up his base in order to get wins so that he can distract us all as he and Elon Musk loot the country and destroy democracy. First thing we're going to be talking about here is the ban against trans people in the military. This is the executive order prioritizing military excellence and readiness. No need to actually read this entire thing, but I think it is important to at least read the first couple of paragraphs because it illustrates really how much these executive orders are just virtue signaling to the Trump base. So let's go ahead and read through it. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and laws of the United States and as commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States, and to ensure the readiness and effectiveness of our armed forces, it is hereby ordered. Section 1 purpose, the United States military has a clear mission to protect the American people and our homeland as the world's most lethal and effective fighting force. Success in this existential mission requires a singular focus on the developing the requisite warrior ethos, and pursuit of military excellence cannot be diluted to accommodate political agendas or other ideologies harmful to unit cohesion. It's like, what the fuck does the warrior ethos mean? Anyway, it's all bullshit. Moving on here. Recently, however, the armed forces have been afflicted with radical gender ideology to appease activists unconcerned with the requirements of military service like physical and mental health, selflessness, and unit cohesion. Now, let's just examine some of the language here, because as you can see, it is very much just all bullshit conservative virtue signaling, but let's look at what they're saying, okay? Physical and mental health. That somehow trans people are not mentally healthy. That's a thing that the conservatives always say, that, you know, it's some kind of mental disease or whatever, which is complete and total fucking bullshit. Not physically healthy, which is also bullshit. I mean, I love it how they can say that trans people are not physically healthy, but that also trans athletes keep winning all the time, which we'll get to that a little bit later on. But like, which one is it? Are they like super awesome athletes that always win, or are they just like weaklings who aren't healthy enough? I don't know. Selflessness, as if every trans person in the world is selfish and they're not able to, I don't know, put their country above their own needs. I mean, isn't that what being in the military is all about? I guess. And unit cohesion. Now, why is unit cohesion in here? What does this actually mean? How does a trans person being in the military disrupt unit cohesion? It's because of bigotry, is what it is. This just basically saying it right out here. It's like, oh, we don't like trans people. We can't have a unit of them because other people in the unit won't put themselves on the line for a trans person. That's basically what this is saying. But let's continue. Long-standing Department of Defense policy provides that it is the policy of the DoD to ensure that service members are free of medical conditions or physical defects that may reasonably be expected to require excessive time lost from duty or necessary treatment or hospitalization. As a result, many mental and physical health conditions are incompatible with active duty, from conditions that require substantial medication or medical treatment to bipolar and related disorders, eating disorders, suicidality, and prior psychiatric hospitalization. Now, I'm pretty sure that any trans person watching this right here can see where the stereotypes are seeping into this. The idea that a trans person is, they commit suicide at higher rates or whatever just because they're trans. No, that's bullshit, right? But they're writing it right here, suicidality. Okay, which is fucking ridiculous. Mental conditions. The idea that trans people are all mentally ill. You can see how it's all seeping into this, which is just incredibly ridiculously bigoted. Consistent with the military mission and long-standing DoD policy, expressing a false gender identity divergent from an individual's sex cannot satisfy the rigorous standards necessary for military service. Beyond the hormonal and surgical medical interventions involved, adoption of a gender identity inconsistent with an individual's sex conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's personal life. A man's assertion that he is a woman and his requirement that others honor this falsehood is not consistent with the humility and selflessness required of a service member. So you notice that there's no why. They don't say why, okay? Why is it that if you express a differing gender identity, not a false gender identity, but if you express a gender identity divergent from your individual sex, why does that not satisfy the rigorous standards necessary for military service? What is the problem with that? Why? It's because they say so. That's what fascism is all about, see? Why is it that if you have a gender identity inconsistent with your assigned gender at birth, how does that conflict, and I'll just highlight the part right here, with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle? How exactly is that? You allow men in the military, you allow women in the military. Being a man or a woman is consistent with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, or disciplined lifestyle. So how exactly is it inconsistent if you call yourself a woman instead of a man, or a man instead of a woman? You're still falling into those two categories. If you just read it, it doesn't make any sense, because bigotry and hatred is illogical. They don't have to explain it because they're in charge. See, this is what fascism is all about here. This is what bigotry is all about here. And you can read, just by reading this language here, it's all ridiculous virtue signaling bullshit. So this is the first one, and it kind of goes on for a little bit here, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to allow trans people to be in the military anymore. So if you're in the military and you're a trans person, basically kiss your career goodbye. Kiss your career goodbye, not because of anything that you did, not because of your performance, not because of anything like that. You didn't screw up. You're basically getting let go now because of who you are, because you dared to come out and express and live the way that you want to live. Apparently that's not good enough for Donald Trump and his band of turfy fucking cohorts now. This is what happens when Republicans take over, okay? And please keep in mind, it's not just Donald Trump. This could have happened with any goddamn Republican, because it's the entire Republican Party who are the fascists. It's not just MAGA, it's not just Trump, it is Republicans and conservatives. That's the first step that happened here. Now we have another one where Donald Trump has basically outlawed any gender-affirming care for minors in this country. This is the next executive order, protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. By the authority vested in me in President, blah, 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 hereby ordered, Section 1, Policy and Purpose. Across the country today, medical professionals are maiming and sterilizing a growing number of impressionable children under the radical and false claim that adults can change a child's sex through a series of reversible medical interventions. This dangerous trend will be a stain on our nation's history. It must end. You notice how none of these just jump into it? They don't just say, going forward, A, B, C, D. No, they always have to have like 2 or 3 paragraphs of stupid conservative virtue signaling culture war bullshit in front of each one, because that's what these are actually for. This is like all red meat so that the MAGA folks can like jack off to it and say like, oh, look how much we're winning, even though eggs cost $7 a fucking like dozen now. Right? That's what these fucking morons, that's what this shit is for. But let's read on a little bit, because it's important for us to actually examine it, right? Countless children soon regret that they have been mutilated and begin to grasp the horrifying tragedy that they will never be able to conceive children of their own or nurture their children through breastfeeding. Moreover, these vulnerable youths' medical bills may rise throughout their lifetimes, as they are often trapped with lifelong medical complications, a losing war with their own bodies, and tragically sterilization. Which is also bullshit, but let's continue. Accordingly, it is the policy of the United States that it will not fund, sponsor, promote, assist, or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another, and it will rigorously enforce all laws that prohibit or limit these destructive and life-altering procedures. So let's read a little bit more before I start commenting on it. The term child or children means individual under 19 years of age. So you notice that? It says individual or individuals under 19 years of age, but 18 is the age where you're legally an adult. So why does it say 19? Because you're not a child at 19, you're an adult at 19. You can vote, you can join the army, you can get sent to life in prison and be tried as an adult when you're 19. You can buy a house when you're 19. You could do all the shit that a normal adult can do when you're 19, except like buy alcohol, which is bullshit. You should be able to buy alcohol when you're 19, but whatever, right? So why is it 19? Because they don't actually give a fuck about children. It's about harming trans people, including trans adults. And really, this is just a baby step until it's only a matter of time until they put out another executive order saying that these types of surgeries and gender-affirming care is illegal for all adults in the country. That's the next step, but let's continue. The phrase chemical and surgical mutilation means the use of puberty blockers, including GnRH agonists and other interventions to delay the onset of progression of normally timed puberty in an individual who does not identify as his or her sex. The use of sex hormones such as androgen blockers, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone to align an individual's physical appearance with an identity that differs from his or her sex, and surgical procedures that attempt to transform an individual's physical appearance to align with an identity that differs from his or her sex, or that attempt to alter or remove an individual's sexual organs to minimize or destroy their natural biological functions. This phrase sometimes is referred to as gender-affirming care. See, now remember, when you're 18, you're supposed to be an adult, so this doesn't mean it's just for minors. So all of you MAGA people out there who watch my videos, which I know you guys do because I keep getting comments telling me that I'm a moron and stuff, telling me to fuck off or whatever, before you come on here and say, oh, well, Trump is just trying to defend the little children, please remember what this actually says. Individual or individuals under 19 years of age. That includes adults, because when you're 18, you're an adult. Ending reliance on junk science. It's fucking bullshit. This is all bullshit. Okay, first, Republicans don't give a fuck about science. All right, the last thing that Republicans get to do is claim that they're following the science, because they never follow the fucking science. So anyway, blah, 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 going on, whatever. This basically says that all research and education grants to medical institutions, whatever, and hospitals, any basically hospital that takes federal money, they're going to enforce this ban on, which basically means all of them, right? Now, as far as I can tell from my reading of this executive order, it doesn't mean that all gender-affirming care is banned and that you go to prison if you do it. It doesn't say that. It says in accordance with existing laws. So there would have to be a law in your state that bans it, according to what I understand from this. Now, I could be wrong because I'm not a lawyer, right? But that's kind of what it sounds like to me. So it kind of sounds like this is opening it up so that if, say, Texas or Oklahoma or Florida or something like that wanted to ban gender-affirming care, that then they can just say, oh, well, now this is legal and it's banned here. And you wouldn't be able to, like, say, sue to get an unban because there would be an executive order. However, here's the other thing. Executive orders do not make laws. So I'm not exactly sure how they're going to be able to enforce this, because the president cannot just say this is the law now. No, that's not how executive orders work. Executive orders, they only can interpret existing laws. And if there's not a law, then that means that the executive order has no teeth. Kind of like how a week and a half ago, he did an executive order to take away birthright citizenship and it got sued immediately, like the day after, and got blocked. And now that's been blocked pending lawsuits because the president is not allowed to just decree something. He's not allowed to change any laws through executive order. This is my understanding. According to this, is what it looks like to me. It looks like that if the hospital takes federal funds, then they're not allowed to engage in gender-affirming care for minors at risk of them losing their federal funding. That's what it looks like to me, which is, don't get me wrong, it's still bullshit. It just doesn't, it's not like a nationwide ban as far as I can tell. So, still complete bullshit. It's still essentially a war on trans people, and it makes me sick to my stomach to have to read that. Let's continue on. There's one more that I want to show you guys, and then we're going to actually go through a speech from Donald Trump as he gloats signing one of these orders. Keeping men out of women's sports. So this one, I have no idea how the fuck they're going to enforce this, but let's go ahead and read it. In recent years, many educational institutions and athletic associations have allowed men to compete in women's sports. This is demeaning, unfair, and dangerous to women and girls, and denies women and girls the equal opportunity to participate and excel in competitive sports. As an aside, by the way, before we go on, conservatives have never given a fuck about women's sports at all. Women's sports have just been a joke to them forever. Like, they've never given a shit about it until it became politically expedient for them to do so. Now, suddenly, they have to defend the poor women or whatever. It's such fucking bullshit, but let's continue. Moreover, under Title IX of the Education Amendments Act of 1972, educational institutions receiving federal funds cannot deny women an equal opportunity to participate in sports. As some federal courts have recognized, ignoring fundamental biological truths between two sexes deprives women and girls of meaningful access to educational facilities. Therefore, it is the policy of the United States to rescind all funds from educational programs that deprive women and girls of fair athletic opportunities, which results in the endangerment, humiliation, and silencing of women and girls, and deprives them of privacy. It shall also be the policy of the United States to oppose male competitive participation in women's sports more broadly as a matter of safety, fairness, dignity, and truth. First off, you notice that they don't seem to ever talk about trans men, do they? They only talk about trans women. They don't seem to give a shit that if, say, a trans man were to enter, say, a wrestling competition and whip everybody's ass or something, they would never talk about that. They don't give a fuck about that. They only care about trans women. You know why? Because it's a virtue signal. That's what it is. They have to protect the poor, defenseless women from the evil commies or whatever. And it's very disturbing, the parallels between this and this particular mode of anti-trans attack and, say, what they used to say about black people back in the early part of the 20th century. That was a big part of racism back then. And they used to say the same thing about black people, that they were going to go and steal away all the white women or whatever. And they said the same thing about Asians, that they're going to steal all the white women and keep them as slaves in opium dens. And they said the same thing about Latinos and Mexicans. That's why they banned marijuana, because they were going to use the devil's lettuce in order to steal away the white women. It's the same fucking playbook over and over and over again. And now they're doing it against the evil, demonic trans people. Have to defend their poor, defenseless little women. Such bullshit. Okay, in furtherance of the purposes of Title IX, the Secretary of Education shall promptly, in coordination with the Attorney General, continue to comply with the vernacular vacatur. Okay, never heard that word before. Vacatur of the rule entitled Non-Discrimination on the Basis of Sex in Education Programs or Activities Receiving Federal Financial Assistance, and take other appropriate action to ensure this regulation does not have effect. You see that? Do you see how the way this shit's written? Continue to comply with this rule and take other appropriate action to ensure this regulation does not have effect. So basically, removing that regulation, which this is a law. Say this is actually a law. And they can't get rid of this law. So they have to basically say that we're just not going to enforce this law. You know, which that in and of itself makes this executive order illegal, because executive orders are not allowed to disobey the law or change any laws But whatever. Okay, continuing on, blah, 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 basically saying, okay, all female locker rooms, whatever, and deny female students equal opportunity to participate in sports, which by this essentially means that if you allow trans girls to participate, then you're not giving female students equal opportunity to participate, which is, you see how they're twisting the language and putting it on its head. The idea that, oh, we're going to defend women from the evil trans perverts that are trying to, like, molest them or whatever, when in real life it's like they're basically taking this regulation which is supposed to stop discrimination and they're going to use it to discriminate. You see how they're twisting this shit around. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. So anyway, long story short, this basically says that any school, we could read through the rest of this, but we don't really need to. But this basically says that any school or college or athletic association that deals with high schools or colleges or anything like that is no longer allowed to have trans athletes, specifically trans women. Doesn't really mention trans men. Doesn't say anything like that. So I don't know, is it still legal then? You know, does this apply towards trans men? Like if you're a trans man and you want to be a wrestler, can you still go do it and compete in the men's wrestling and just beat the shit out of all the men? I don't know. I would love to see that fucking happen. I'm pretty sure there's some trans male athlete out there that can, like, pull that off. I think that's what we need in order to humiliate some of these assholes. But that's basically it. 3 executive orders which are essentially doing their best to wipe trans people off the map. Any of you out there who are confused by this, thinking that they're genuinely trying to defend women and girls, it's not true. This is all virtue signaling. That's what this is. This is all just virtue signaling. It's all just red meat that Trump is throwing out to his base to make it look like he's actually doing something, as he basically crashes the economy and steals all the power. And the best way for me to illustrate this is to show you Trump's creepy ass speech that he gave while he was signing the ban on trans athletes from female sports. This goes on for half an hour, but we're going to watch the first 3 minutes. Let's just let Trump's words speak for themselves, and you can see exactly the reason why they decided to sign these executive orders.
We've gotten the woke lunacy out of our military. And now we're very importantly getting it out of women's sports. That's taking place very strongly.
By the way, you notice every time he always says things like very strongly, very bigly, stuff like that. Those are filler words. Because he doesn't have anything of actual substance to say. It's like saying or ah or you know or something like that. You know. Let's continue.
So in recent years, the radical left has waged an all-out campaign to erase the very concept of biological sex and replace it with a militant transgender ideology. You've heard a little bit about this, haven't you, huh? Just a little bit?
Militant. Uh-huh.
Does anybody agree with them? No. It would be not a good thing to say yes right here. Female athletes have been forced onto the front.
You see Trump's, the showmanship at work here. This is basically a rhetorical trick to keep people from actually examining the words that he's actually saying. Everybody agree with that? No! What were you agreeing with again? Right? It's because if you, as a viewer at home, see a whole crowd shout in affirmation like that, you're more likely to actually agree with that crowd. That's why they do that kind of thing at like comedy shows and like magician shows and shit like that and like concerts and whatever. Right? That's why comedians always make a joke about the town that they're in so that everybody from that town cheers. Okay, it's the same fucking thing, but let's continue. It's just basically a guy's a fucking carnival barker is what he is. He's like P.T. Barnum up here. Continuing.
Lines and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories, that's a lot, and invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women. Last year, a male cyclist posed...
Where did he get this number from, by the way? I couldn't find it. I couldn't find this number that he was talking about. 11,000 competitions. That really does sound like some bullshit that somebody just made up. But let's continue.
Than 11,000 competitions designed for women. Last year, a male cyclist posing as a woman competed in the 800-mile Arizona Trail Race, a very big deal in cycling, and obliterated the women's course record by nearly 5.5 hours. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it, huh? 5.5 hours, but you have to hear the weightlifting records.
Now, for this claim, the athlete's name is Austin Killips, who is a trans woman. And the thing about this is that she did not obliterate the women's record for the Arizona Trail 800 route. She set a new record overall for both men and women. It is true that she came in 5 hours ahead of the previous record, but the previous record was held by a man. The record she beat was held by a man. She also did this on her own time, not as part of some kind of race. Trump is making it sound like she competed in a race solely against other women and somehow stole the victory trophy or some shit. No, that's bullshit. See, when you actually examine the real situation, you can see that nobody was cheated, nobody was stolen from. It's all conservative, fear-mongering, virtue signaling bullshit. Let's continue on a little bit here.
You think that's bad? The weightlifting's worse. In 2023, a man in women's power lifting broke 2 world records and outlifted his closest female opponent in one event by 440 pounds. And they continue to defend themselves, Mr. Congressman. You know that, right? They continue to defend themselves.
A little bit about that. So that was not even a high school or college weightlifting competition. This happened in Canada. It wasn't even in the United States. And it was with a weightlifting competition that did not have any rules about trans people competing. See, in the United States, in most sports, there are rules, specifically about a trans woman competing with other women. There are rules. You know, rules like, say, for example, the trans person has to have been on hormones for a certain amount of time. They have to have less than this threshold amount of testosterone in their body. There has to be rules like that. You know, specifically for this scenario, right? The scenario that the South Park guys made fun of when they had Macho Man Randy Savage show up and beat all the women at wrestling. Like, that's exactly the kind of thing that there are rules for to avoid. Well, this particular weightlifting competition in Canada doesn't have any of those rules. So I have this article here which basically illustrates what happened when it comes to this particular story and why Donald Trump is fucking lying his ass off. Let's kind of get into it for a little bit. Bearded man smashes women's weightlifting record held by trans lifter. See, this is actually from Fox News here. They think that they're being funny, and they printed this because this is an anti-trans story when you read it, but it perfectly illustrates why Donald Trump is full of shit. So let's kind of go through what actually happened. In fact, I don't really need to read this, but we can just sort of explain it. This person right here, up on the right, is Ann Andres, right? And this is the trans woman who won the women's powerlifting record in Canada. This happened in Canada, right? And then this guy, this fucking 300-pound fucking dude shows up with a beard and everything, declared that he was a woman, and then smashed her record. So let's kind of read through it a little bit, right? A bearded pro powerlifter entered a women's competition in Canada and smashed a record held by a transgender lifter who was watching on. New York Post reports Avi Silverberg, the head coach from Team Canada Powerlifting for more than 10 years, entered last weekend's Heroes Classic tournament in Lethbridge, Alberta after identifying as a female. That's this guy right here, Avi Silverberg. Right. So what basically happened? Well, he then casually bench pressed nearly 167 kilograms, beating the current Alberta women's record by almost 45 kilograms. The current record, 124 pounds. Wait, 124 kilogram pounds? What the fuck? What did AI write this shit or something? 124 kilograms is held by trans athlete Ann Andres, who is seen watching Silverberg while volunteering at the event. Andres also holds the Alberta women's record for deadlift at 245 kilograms. See, Fox printed this because they thought it would be funny. because it's an anti-trans thing. So they can say, see, look, this guy just walked in and declared he was a woman and then smashed the record. Ha ha ha. But what does it actually show? It shows that a man came in and is way stronger than a woman over here, who just happens to be a trans woman, but a woman nonetheless. And how come Ann Andrus couldn't bench press 167 kilograms? I mean, if he has like his, if he's cheating with his highly developed male muscles or whatever, it's complete and total bullshit. So let's just keep this in mind, folks. Is that first off, this happened in Canada, where there's no rules, like I explained before. There's none of the same kinds of rules that we have in the United States. Secondly, if it did happen in the United States, Trump's fucking executive order wouldn't have stopped it anyway, because Trump's executive order deals specifically with schools and athletes and athletic competitions held by students, including college students, which is fucking bullshit, but nonetheless college students, if the college takes government money, which is horseshit, so it wouldn't have stopped it anyhow. Right? So the whole fucking thing is like bullshit virtue signaling that has no basis in fucking reality. But this is the shit that Trump puts out there because his fucking followers eat this shit up. One more here, and then we're going to stop this. But let's listen to what Trump's going to say next.
We hope they continue onward because I don't think we can lose a race. This was one of the big reasons that we all won, and it's one of the big reasons that we had a landslide like they haven't seen before, very often anyway.
Yeah, nobody fucking voted for Donald Trump in order to, like, ban trans athletes or bullshit. I don't know. If you voted for Donald Trump in order to ban trans athletes, you're a goddamn moron, but let's continue.
And who could forget last year's Paris Olympics, where a male boxer stole the women's gold medal after brutalizing his female opponent so viciously that she had to forfeit just after 46 seconds, and she was a championship fighter. And actually, they had two women or two people that transitioned, and both of them won gold medals, and they won them very convincingly. But all of that ends today because with this...
Yeah. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about that, of course, is because he's referring to Amin Khalif. Amin Khalif is a cis woman. She's not even trans. She's not a trans woman. She was born female. She's a cis woman. She has not ever presented herself as trans. She's not come out as trans. She's from Algeria. It is illegal in Algeria for women to be trans. This is just not a thing. Why do they keep spreading this lie? She's not a trans woman. And the other person he was talking about also was not a trans woman. I did a whole stream on this. I did several videos on this. So I don't really think we need to go over this ground that we've covered 100 times. It's just a straight up fucking lie. It's a lie. Okay? It's because Amin Khalif is big and strong. And according to conservatives, women have to be small and little and petite. And because Amin Khalif is big and strong and is able to whip some ass, she must somehow be trans. It's complete, total fucking bullshit. Last I heard, Amin Khalif was actually fucking suing people for spreading lies about her being trans. I think I should look that up and see how that went. Hopefully she won some fucking money out of this or something. I think she was actually suing Elon Musk, if I remember right. I don't know. I have to go look it up. But I just wanted to illustrate this for you, folks. I just wanted to show you. These are real people we're talking about. Because of Donald Trump and his desire to pander and virtue signal to his red MAGA hat base and give them something to fucking like jack off to at night so that they might forget how badly he's fucking everything else up. Because of that, real people in this country are going to suffer now. An entire generation of children is basically going to lose out. And when I say entire generation, I mean it. 4 years is a generation when it comes to kids. When in high school, let me rephrase that. An entire high school class, right? If you were in 9th grade today, you will be in 12th grade by the time Donald Trump leaves office. So for the entire high school experience for some of these children, they're going to have to live with this bigotry now until Trump leaves office. And it's going to result in hate and fear and bullying and all of the bad things that come with bullying. And all of this just so Donald Trump can basically make himself feel good. And just so MAGA people have somebody to hate. That's what it's all about. This is what happens when the wrong people win the election. This is why it's so important to get out there and organize and vote. If you want to stop this, the time is pretty much too late. It's going to happen. You're not going to be able to stop it. You can get out there and you can protest and stuff like that. That's not going to do anything to help these actual children now. It's not going to do anything to stop bigotry against these children now in schools all around the country. These kids are going to have to live with it. They're casualties of the wrong person getting in charge. This is why it's so goddamn important to vote. Why it's so goddamn important to stop fascism. If you are inclined to go out, protest, I'm not saying don't do it. But I am saying you're not going to be able to save these kids. It's too late for them. They're just going to have to grow up and put up with this shit. Unfortunately. And you know something? If you want to help the children, get involved. Get out there. Get involved politically. Yeah, go out, protest, hold a sign, whatever. But goddammit, the next time there's an election, get the fuck out there and vote. Right? Get the fuck out there and vote. All right, I don't want to hear no goddamn excuses from anybody anymore. Oh, the Democrats are bad, blah, blah. Just shut the fuck up. Get the fuck out there and vote. All right, because it's not just you whose life is affected by this shit, okay? It's not just you and your fucking whatever. No, there's millions and millions of people, including children, who are going to suffer now because we, as the opposition, we as the progressives, as the liberals, as the Democrats, as the leftists in this country, we couldn't get our shit together. And now our children are going to suffer for it. Unfortunately, these are just the times we live in. Anyhow, folks, it sucks. The whole world's insane. Stay cool, stay safe, and I will see all you guys later. Adios.
Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.